Most religious people in India dedicate themselves to peaceful meditation and the search for spiritual purity. The agorists delve into what society fears most. They live in crematoria among corpses and human ashes, and the limits of any taboo. They eat human flesh when they find cremated remains and perform tantric rituals among bones and ashes. For them, there is no concept of clean or unclean. They sleep next to death, drink from skulls, and defy everything we know as morality, drive someone to live this way. Who are these men who turn the limits of horror into a spiritual path? Today takes you to discover the universe of the Agoris that seems to have come out of a nightmare. Stay with us to discover how the spiritual can be much darker than we imagine. Number 1. Spiritually India. India is a land of spiritual chaos and harmony, where every corner whispers tales of devotion, mysticism, and the search for the divine. From ancient temples vibrating with chants to serene mosques echoing the call to prayer, India is a vibrant spiritual mosaic, embracing Hinduism alongside Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, and smaller faiths. This diversity weaves a harmonious blend of rituals and philosophies. Spirituality in India isn't confined to one path. It's a mosaic of beliefs, from meditation in Himalayan caves to fiery rituals on the Ganges. For some, it's the pursuit of inner peace. For others, it's surrendering to cosmic forces. Islam, one of India's vibrant faiths, means submission to the will of Allah. It calls for unity, charity, and devotion to God. Mosques become sanctuaries of prayer, and festivals like Eid celebrate compassion and community. In this spiritual tapestry, Islam adds its own thread, reminding millions of the balance between faith, discipline, and love. In India, spirituality isn't just personal, it's the soul of the nation itself. Number 2. Rituals. India is a land where rituals breathe life into spirituality, and traditions blur the line between the mystical and the unimaginable. Among these, the tree wedding stands out as both enchanting and symbolic. In parts of India, people marry trees, not out of whimsy but deep belief. This ritual often takes place to counteract a person's unfavorable astrological chart, particularly if they're Manglic. By marrying a sacred tree, like a banana or peepal, they transfer the bad omens to the tree, freeing the individual to marry a human without fear of ill fate. The tree is then treated with respect, often cut down ceremonially as part of the ritual's conclusion. On the other hand, rituals like self-flagellation during Muharram tell a tale of devotion and pain. On this sacred day, Shia Muslims commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Hussein in Karbala. Men, and sometimes boys, take part in processions, beating themselves with sharp chains or blades to feel the pain their spiritual leader endured. The streets turn red, emotions run high, and chants fill the air. For the participants, this isn't just suffering. It's a raw expression of grief, loyalty, and a connection to their faith that transcends the physical. In India, rituals are both haunting and profound, each carrying untold stories of belief. Number 3. Agori. In the shadowed corners of India, far from the bustling cities and serene temples, exists the haunting world of the Agoris. These mysterious ascetics reject everything society holds sacred. They live in cremation grounds, surrounded by death and ash, believing it brings them closer to ultimate truth. For the Agoris, there's no concept of purity or impurity. Life and death are one. Their rituals are as shocking as they are symbolic. They smear cremation ashes on their bodies, meditate on human skulls, and even consume flesh from cremated remains. To them, this isn't horror, it's liberation, a way to transcend earthly fears and attachments. They challenge taboos to see the divine in everything, even the macabre. By day, they meditate among smoldering pyres, chanting mantras to channel divine energy. By night, they perform tantric rituals, seeking enlightenment through paths most would never dare to tread. Their diet is unconventional: leftovers, offerings, and whatever nature provides. They drink from skulls as a reminder of life's fragility. To the Agoris, this way of life is not madness, but a spiritual rebellion, a way to conquer the fear of death and find unity in chaos. Their world is terrifying yet profoundly enlightening, a dance with the divine in the ashes of mortality. Number 4. History. The story of the Agoris dates back centuries, woven into the very fabric of India's spiritual history. Legend has it that the roots of this mystic tradition stretch to the very heart of Hinduism. The Agoris are said to be followers of Lord Shiva, the god of destruction and transformation. In their eyes, to understand the divine, one must embrace the darker side of life: death, decay, and the forbidden. The tradition is believed to have started with Baba Kinaram, a revered saint in the 16th century, who embraced the path of extreme asceticism to seek enlightenment. Kinaram's radical teachings encouraged his followers to shed societal norms and embrace what others feared, believing that in doing so, they could transcend the cycle of life and death. Over time, the Aghori's practices evolved. They gathered in cremation grounds, where the sacred fire of death burned constantly, symbolizing the cycle of creation and destruction. They began to adopt the most shocking of rituals, living among corpses, meditating on skulls, and consuming remnants of the dead, not out of madness, but to conquer the illusion of death and separation from the divine. The Aghori way of life remains a mystery to many, but at its core, it's about transcending the earthly, confronting the fears of mortality, and seeing divinity in everything, even in what others might consider the darkest places. Number 5. Tradition. The Aghori tradition is as old as India's spiritual mysteries, and it all began with a man who defied everything society believed in. The first Aghori is said to be Baba Kinaram, a legendary figure born in the 16th century. He was not your typical saint. Baba Kinaram sought the deepest truth by embracing what others feared: death, decay, and the forbidden. He believed that to understand the divine, one must confront life's darkest corners where fear and attachment hold sway. His followers began to live in cremation grounds, where the cycle of life and death is most evident. They smeared ashes on their bodies, meditated on skulls, and even consumed the remains of the dead. To Baba Kinaram, these shocking practices weren't madness. They were the path to enlightenment, to freeing oneself from the illusions of purity and impurity. Through his eyes, everything, even death, was sacred and divine. Number 6. Life in the crematorium. Life near the Ganga River, in the shadow of crematoriums, is a world that most would never imagine living in. Yet, for some, this is home. Along the banks of the Ganga, where the holy river flows and flames from funeral pyres light the night sky, these people, often ascetics or mystics, find a unique kind of peace. They live in cremation grounds, surrounded by the burning remains of the dead, believing that by confronting death daily, they can transcend the fear of it. In Varanasi, one of the holiest cities in India, the air is thick with smoke from the eternal fires that never go out. Here, these individuals meditate by the river, chant mantras, and live in total harmony with the impermanence of life. For them, death isn't an end, it's a natural part of existence, and in this sacred space, they see the divine in every moment, whether in life, death, or the space in between. Number 7. Ritual cannibalism, rare and symbolic. This practice, though horrifying to many, is part of the ancient spiritual tradition of the Aghoris, mystics who see the world through a lens of radical belief. For them, consuming human flesh is not an act of savagery, but a profound spiritual ritual. The story goes that Aghoris believe that to truly transcend the cycle of life and death, one must confront the ultimate taboo: death itself. And what better way to do so than by consuming the very remains of the dead? They don't hunt for human flesh. Rather, they use what they find in cremation grounds, where bodies are burned as part of sacred rituals. They believe that by eating the remains, they are symbolically absorbing the divine energy of the deceased, breaking the chains of societal norms and pushing beyond the boundaries of life and death. To the Aghoris, death isn't something to fear. It's a natural transition, a part of the divine cycle. The ritual is an extreme form of devotion, a way to transcend the fear of mortality and merge with the universe. It's a shocking practice, but for them, it's not just about consumption. It's about spiritual awakening in the face of life's most dreaded mysteries. Number 8. Tantric and sexual rituals. In the shadows of India's spiritual landscape, where most dare not tread, the Aghoris live by an ancient, often misunderstood tradition. Their beliefs are radical, pushing the boundaries of what most consider sacred or taboo. Central to their practice is Tantra, a form of mysticism that integrates the physical and spiritual realms, including sexual energy. The Aghoris don't see the physical body as a source of impurity. Instead, they view it as a vessel to connect with the divine. In tantric rituals, they seek to transcend the limitations of the physical world, using sex and other earthly acts as a means of spiritual awakening. For them, every act, no matter how taboo or controversial, holds the potential for enlightenment. These rituals aren't about indulgence, but about breaking free from the constraints of the material world. The Aghoris believe that through rituals, often performed in sacred, eerie places like cremation grounds, they can channel the energy of the universe and achieve a higher state of consciousness. It's a path that few can understand, one that challenges the very notions of purity and morality, aiming for ultimate liberation from fear, attachment, and death. For the Aghoris, there's no line between the sacred and the profane. Everything is a tool for spiritual transcendence. Number 9. Hierarchy and organization. In the hidden corners of India, the Aghori tradition is built on a unique and mysterious hierarchy, a system far from the conventional. The Aghoris aren't bound by the structured rules of society. Instead, their order follows a deeper, spiritual logic. At the top is the guru, a revered master, often believed to have transcended worldly desires and attained divine knowledge. He is both a teacher and a guide, leading his followers through the darkest corners of spirituality. Beneath him are his disciples, who live by strict codes of asceticism and ritual. Each Aghori's life is dedicated to self-purification, but they are also bound by loyalty to the guru. They often reside in cremation grounds, performing rituals to connect with the divine and overcome fear. There's no room for material wealth or worldly attachments in their hierarchy. The only goal is spiritual awakening, achieved through intense meditation, extreme rituals, and the abandonment of all societal norms. It's a life that defies the conventional, a path chosen only by those willing to walk in the darkest shadows in search of the light beyond. Which Aghori practice intrigued you the most? Had you ever encountered such a peculiar and intense tradition, or were you surprised by today's revelations? If this deep dive into the shadowy side of Indian spirituality fascinated you, make sure to like, follow, and turn on notifications for more.